Day 10, chapters 30 through 31 of Genesis. Here God's still playing the baby game. Last time it was with Leah, this time it's with Rachel. Rachel realized Leah was having all the babies, and since women are worth nothing if they don't have babies, she felt that Jacob didn't quote-unquote love her. Now, there should be a description of love in the Bible. In the Old Testament, I know the New Testament says beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, but apparently this did not apply to Jacob and his wives, or any husband and his wives back then, because supposedly Jacob did not love Leah, but he raped her. He loved Rachel. So God saw that Leah was unloved. So he gave Leah all... I'm not going to go through that again. This so problematic. These stories are so problematic in so many ways. Anyway, so Rachel now sees that Jacob no longer loves her, so much for beareth all things. So she gives her slave for Jacob to rape, so the slave would have a baby, and then the owners could take possession of the baby and claim the baby as theirs. So that's what happens. And the slave's name is Bilhah. And she had 2 children. And then Leah gets upset because Jacob no longer loves her. So much for believeth all things. And so now she wants a baby. Let me see. Here's my daughter. Okay, so let me see if Leah... Okay, Silpah is Leah's slave. So she does the same thing. Leah does the same thing to Zilpah that Rachel did to Bilhah. Gives the slave to Jacob so he can rape and then take the baby from her. And as I'm noticing, I'm forgetting to mention they're having all sons. This is such a made-up story. And it doesn't say they raped him repeatedly. There's something called, I don't know if you know about the sexual reproduction, but there's something called ovulation. And if your egg is not present, you're not going to get pregnant. So, I don't know. These stories are just not jiving with science. Anyway, so Zilpah has a son. Oh, and go figure. She has a second son. So, Rachel's slave has 2 sons. Zilpah's slave has 2 sons. So now what are we, even now? I don't understand this. And then there's something weird over here. This next, during chapter 14, there's a story about, who was it? I think it was Leah's son got some mandrakes. I don't know what the importance of mandrakes are, but apparently Rachel wanted the mandrakes, so they must be of some importance. And Leah says, "You stole my husband, now you're trying to take my mandrakes." And get this, Rachel pimps off her husband. Leah says, "I'll give you the mandrakes if I get to have sex with Jacob." And so Rachel says, okay. Oh, piece of hair here. Rachel says, okay, she just pimped out her husband. And so Leah has sex with Jacob that night. And Surprise, surprise, she must have been ovulating because she had a son. Not a daughter, a son. And then, finally they have a daughter. After that, and she comes to her fifth son. Okay, the fifth son's name was Issachar. Then she, surprise, surprise, finally somebody has a female. And she's named Dinah. Who knows? Maybe Leah gave Rachel more mandrakes in exchange for sex with her husband. I don't know. But anyways, let me see. So Rachel, it says here in chapter 22, after all this, then God remembered Rachel. Did he forget? He heard her prayer and made her fruitful because, apparently she's like, I'm not having any kids anymore. And she conceived and bore a son. Of course it's a son. If it's from God, it's a son. It's not a daughter. Because women are worthless. So this one was named Joseph. Now this is still in the same chapter. Here's another story that's problematic, not because of rape, but because the way God defends con artists. And he blesses, or he gives good harvest, lots of livestock, makes them successful. The better they are, the more God seems to favor them. Jacob says he wants to leave Laban and with his wives and children, and says, I know that as long as you work for me, things have been going good for me. Just let me know what I owe you and you can leave. Now here's where Jacob, the thief skank, makes this bad deal with Laban. Jacob says something about goats and sheep. He'll take the ones that are blemished. They're maybe speckled or spotted. And I guess these speckled and spotted sheep were not ideal in that time period. Let me see, the footnote here in the New American Version says, in the Near East, the normal color of sheep is light gray, whereas that of goats is uniform dark brown or black. Ordinarily, therefore, Jacob would have received but few animals. So Jacob says, this was not Laban, Jacob made this deal. He'll take the spotted goats and sheep. I'm sorry, speckled or spotted goats or a dark sheep. That's what he's going to take. Only that. Right? And so it says, that same day Laban removed the streak and spotted he-goats and the speckled and spotted she-goats, all of those with some white on them, as well as the fully dark colored sheep. And these he left in charge of his sons. Then he put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob, while Jacob continued to pasture the rest of Laban's flock. Now, what Jacob did was some magic. Now, it says here that they actually thought this was scientific, but to me it just sounds like, I think that's a lie. I think this is just what they thought was sheer magic. If you get some, what was it? It's some weird stuff. fresh shoots of poplar, almond, and plane trees, whatever, Plane, whatever that means. And he made white stripes in them by peeling off the bark to the white core of the shoots. And he set them upright in the watering trough so that they'd be in front of the animals when they drank from the troughs. When the animals were in heat as they came to drink, I'm thinking, they were menstruating, allowing, ready to produce offspring. The goats mated by the rods, and so they brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted kids. Now again, the footnotes say this is something that they thought was scientific. Personally, I think they just thought it was magic. I don't think they thought anything scientific about it. So anyways, surprise, surprise, this magic nonsense worked according to the Bible. Now this would not work. It would never work. This is just nonsense. This is old husband's tales. This is magic. It's stupid. But so anyways, the story is trying to portray that Jacob intentionally made Laban's flock bad, quote unquote bad, undesirable, so Jacob would get to take all them goats and sheep, because he would get the speckled and spotted ones that were the offspring of these animals that mated in front of these stripped down barks of wood placed in water. So this was intentional on Jacob's part. He's a con man, he's a thief. And then there was some other not blood magic, but some magic nonsense with when they were in heat. He put the weaker animals near the rods, and that was supposed to make them strong. Or something. I don't really understand it. It was something more to do with the rods, and when they were weak, he'd put them, or strong, he'd put them near the rods and make them weak, or when they were weak, they'd put them at, I don't know. It's just some more stuff, and apparently, supposedly it worked, which again is a bunch of nonsense, which tells you this story is just BS made up, because according to the Bible, this worked, and we know it doesn't work. But anyways, this was another way Jacob got his way and stole Laban's animals. So anyways, Jacob, I've been calling him Jake in my notes because I have no respect for him. Jake heard that Laban's sons were saying, he's doing all this stuff to our father. He's basically stealing his livestock. So Jacob, being the great man he is, decides to tuck and run, right? And so he tells his wife a lie, saying that their father, remember they're sisters that married to the same husband, Jake tells Rachel and Leah, his wives, a bunch of nonsense, saying that Laban was stealing from him. He wasn't giving him his fair wages. So, and he said all this just to get the women to leave without protest with him. Turn the daughters against the father when I've done the father wrong, so I can get the Hades out of here as soon as possible, and I have more people in my camp pushing for me. Well, the stupid wives, knowing Jake's a rapist and a slut and a whore and a con man, he believed Jake. And so they're ready to go. They get ready to go. Well, Rachel stole what was said here as idols. Stole some of her father's idols before she left. Now, I don't even know why she would do this, but it's dumb. But anyways, the footnote said the idols were actually ceremony pieces. They weren't, I guess you didn't actually, it wasn't like an idol you'd worship. It was like some trinket that you would put in like your ceremony when you're worshiping God or gods or whatever. So anyways, she stole them before she left. Anyways, let me see. He, again, like I said, he turned them against his father, them against their father. They believed him, and they left. Well, it says on the third day, Laban got word, 3 days later, Laban got word that Jacob left. I don't know. I don't think it says in here if Laban knew that Jacob stole from him. I don't remember reading that. But anyways, when Laban was about to overtake Jake, where his camp was, the Lord had told Laban not to hurt Jake. Okay, Jake stole a bunch of stuff from him, left, taking Laban's daughters with him and all the livestock he stole. And God's protecting him. So much for God being righteous. He's protecting the con man and telling the victim, you know, don't do anything. Don't do anything about it. Just let him have his way. So anyways, Laban, gets to Jake's campground, and he tells him, why did you leave? Not let me say goodbye to my children and grandchildren. Why did you just leave like that? I would have, had a parade while you left. We would have had a party before you left. And then he brings up the idols. Not knowing who stole them, Laban says, you took some of my idols, which are, according to this Bible, relics. Really, they were relics. And so Jake, not knowing Rachel stole the idols, said, if you find the idols, the person who had stolen them from you will die. Well, anyways, so Laban goes through the camp to look for his idols. When he gets to Rachel, Rachel was laying on them. I guess put a sheet or something over them and was laying on the sheet. Well, Laban says, I got to look for my idols. Rachel said, I'm on my period. I'm menstruating. I can't get up. So Laban didn't find the idols. Where's God in all this? Laban was stolen from. Laban did a good deed. Well, not so good of a deed because he let his daughters be raped. He encouraged this polygamy thing. And then, so I don't know. Anyways, God didn't straighten that out. He let Jake win that one. So in the end, not finding the idols, Jake and Laban make a pact between them that they would not cross paths if they were mad at each other. They made this, what do they call it? They made a mound. I thought they had a word for it, but I guess they don't. Anyways, they made a mound and put a stone on it. It was a marker that neither one of them should cross that marker if they intended any ill will toward the other person. Hopefully I explained that right. So Jacob was going back to his parents' house. I don't know if I mentioned that, but he was running back to mommy and daddy after he had stolen all this stuff from Laban and done him wrong like that. And so that's what that mound was in between Laban's encampment and where mom and dad, Jake's mom and dad, which I guess was Laban's sister and brother-in-law, lived, and neither one should cross paths if they were mad at the other. Cross that mound to get to the other person. And they had a party. It says they made a sacrifice and, you know, shared in the meal with everybody there, all the slaves and their wives and the husbands, and closed curtain. So all this nonsense, and everybody's happy in the end. Please, that's not how that works. You know, he stole like maybe a third of his livestock. And you're not going to be mad, and it's just going to be, oh, well, God says we should get along. And God's protecting the one who stole from me. This just gets more and more problematic as I read it. That's why I am not against book burning. I think some books should be retired and not seen the light of day ever again. And this is one of them. Anyway, so I want to show you my doll. This is my hearkening stick, made out of twigs from my yard. I got a face there. I don't know, it's my lens might be dirty. It looks a little bit. See? So look at there. I made that. It's my doll that I made for sale. If you want it, let me know. And I always try and put some little knick-knack or doodad or little pin. That's a pin right there that you can use, put on your person. Anyways, bye.